Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get us started today. Like Jen said, if you have any questions at all, if there's something you want to ask me, this is super interactive. I love your questions. There's no question that's off limits. Don't be afraid to stop, raise your hand, ask anything. For everyone who's moderating, I'm okay with you guys interrupting me while I'm speaking. I want this to be super interactive and fun for everyone. So feel free to ask questions throughout. I'm totally cool with that. I don't mind being interrupted at all. We're going to start with our crumble first because that's going to take about 50 to 60 minutes to cook total. So hopefully we can get it done by the time this class ends. So I want you all to at least make sure your ovens are on and preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the best way to start. And so this recipe is inspired. It's a red, white, and blue crumble. And I love crumbles because they're super easy to conform to any diet. Like currently, because my son has what we think is a milk protein allergy and I'm breastfeeding, I have to go dairy free, which is very sad for me. As much as I love cheese, I'm actually taking this queso over to a friend right after, and it's going to be very, very sad time, but she's thrilled. But what I love about this crumble is it's so easy to make, dairy free, vegan, low sugar. That's what makes it so great for a migraine diet. And it's really, really easy to whip up and put together. So you can switch out the fruit to any fruit you like. I know some people have issues with strawberries sometimes because of the histamine, but we're using them today to make it a little more patriotic. But if there's another fruit you like, this recipe is actually inspired from my cookbook. It's called the Black and Blue Sunflower Crumble. So again, you can use blackberries, all blueberries, whatever fruit you like here. And you'll just see how easy this one is. So let's get cooking together. We are going to start, preheated your oven to 350 degrees. And we're going to start with just talking about a dish to use. So the best dish you can use for a crumble is like a low dish. So I really like to use a gratin dish because it has a lot of wide surface area. And the best part about the crumble is the crumble. Everyone wants to get that crispy, crunchy topping in each bite that they take of the crumble. So this allows all those oats to kind of crisp up, get that golden brown toasted flavor to them. That's so amazing. And it allows everything to cook and not turn mushy. Sometimes if you get a dish that's too deep and fill it too high with fruit, you'll just end up with so much fruit to crumble ratio. So it's about balancing the two. So you have the right amount of fruit and the right amount of crumble, and you have the crispiness and the softness of the fruit, and it just blends together perfectly. So for this, I would recommend finding, a more shallow dish if you can. An 8x8 will work. If you have that in a pinch, you can also use a gratin dish like this. You can use a 10-inch round cake pan. All of these things will work. So we're going to start by greasing it. And whether you're using butter, coconut oil, or just regular oil, just put a little bit into the pan. So I have a little bit, what I'm actually using instead of butter here is Earth Balance pressed oils. They're an oil, kind of butter, vegan butter substitute, but without a ton of additives or natural flavorings or anything in it. So pretty migraine friendly. And I actually have a little bit of oil that I might drop in here as well. But you don't have to do this. Just take whatever you're using to, that you'll melt together later for the crumble, and just kind of swirl it around the bottom of your dish to get it nice and greased. Okay. And then fruit. Have strawberries here. And a little tip that everyone might not know is you can use your fruit containers as a colander to wash all your berries. So one less dish to have to wash, and just run it under cold water. So I've done that here with my blueberries and my strawberries. I'm just using like a simple paring knife to cut my strawberries into smaller pieces. So you just want them, you can cut them like into quarters. I'm going to take off the tops with them like this. And I have a few chopped here already. So just slice off the tops and then cut them into smaller pieces. I like to cut them, you know, lengthwise and widthwise a little bit. They don't have to be perfect and even. You just don't want to get a huge mouthful of strawberries. Anyways, just dump these into your baking dish as you cut them. And the blueberries, you don't even have to chop. That's the good thing about using smaller berries like blueberries and blackberries. You don't even have to chop them up. But I had to make this super fun for Memorial Day. So a little extra effort on our part, right? For fun. So I'm just kind of adding my blueberries in here. You want about roughly 4 cups of fruit. I don't usually measure this out too much. Don't go crazy with it or drive yourself crazy with it. You don't have to have the exact amount. You just want enough to cover the bottom of the dish. Again, you don't want it to be a super deep layer of fruit. Just enough for, you know, 4 or 5 people this will serve. Unless you have a father like mine who likes the whole thing to himself. And then I really can't help you. Then you have to just serve him his own portion. Are there any questions so far? I guess I could talk about my knives. So what I like to use, kitchen knives, I got these whenever I registered for your wedding, which is always a handy dandy way to get really nice knives. But if you're already married and down the road, I really like the Wusthof brand of knives. They're pretty easy to sharpen and they stay sharp for a long time. You can get these at like Williams Sonoma. I think even Amazon has them now, but I'm actually using them. I really like them for chopping too. This is a great kind of chef's knife that you can use for chopping as well. They're really light. So I think another thing with migraine, I don't know if you guys notice this, but sometimes I notice it with vestibular migraine, is things just feel really heavy sometimes and draining, especially when you're cooking while you're having an attack. So anything you can do to make cooking a little bit easier for yourself, whether it's using like really good knives that are nice and sharp and easy to cut with. I mean, it's just a game changer. Yes.
It's Shirley. I have a question about your knives. How do you sharpen them?
Sharpen them. Usually you can actually buy a sharpener on Amazon. It's like if you're too scared to use the,
I have that electric one. I was just wondering, if you recommend that one, or do you use the old-fashioned?
So we actually use the old-fashioned. I don't see it over here. I usually have it somewhere around here. But I usually use the old-fashioned like stick that you kind of run it back and forth with. But you can use, if you want to use the electronic one, that's probably easier for everyone. I'll have to try to find it though and show you guys. Maybe while Karen's chatting, I can go through some of my drawers. It's always one of those things you pack away until you need it.
I
and
have
it's
one,
like
Alicia.
a great time.
Alicia,
Oh, you do? Oh, yes, that's what. Yes. And you just kind of run your knife back and forth at an angle. And it's just a quick way to do it. I think the electronic ones are better if you like need a really, really good sharpening. And then finally, if you're too scared to do it, there are people who will do it for you. Like I'm pretty sure you can bring your knives into like a Sur La Table or a Williams Sonoma or something, and they will either sharpen them for you or they'll recommend someone who can. So that might be the easiest option of all. But again, if you haven't sharpened your knives in like the last 6 months, you're probably, and you cook, you know, often, probably due for a good sharpening. And you'll just be amazed at how much easier it is to cook with. So how's everyone doing? Does everyone's dish kind of starting to look like mine with a good mix of strawberries and blueberries in it? I hope so. All right, I guess we have bigger problems, huh? If not, please raise your hand in the chat. Okay, so I used about a pint of blueberries and I want to say a whole package of strawberries, actually, maybe a little bit more. But again, if you're measuring this out, it'll be roughly about 4 cups. So we have our fruit ready. What we're going to do to kind of, so as this cooks in the oven, the berries will kind of release their juices, and you want a thickness to that sauce that they kind of release. So to do that, we're going to add a little bit of cornstarch. If you don't have cornstarch, you can use all-purpose flour. That will work as well. You just want something to kind of thicken that sauce. So we're going to mix these in with the berries, and we're going to use, what did I say? 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. Good thing is cornstarch is totally gluten-free. So if you're making this for someone who has a you know, celiac or a gluten sensitivity, this is really good. It'll match their gluten-free. Okay. Also, 1.5 tablespoons is kind of difficult to measure out. It's typically, so there are 3 teaspoons in 1 tablespoon. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and you can too. I mean, you're not going to mess up this dish if you don't have it perfect. But what I would recommend, and what has actually made my life so much easier, is you can get odd measuring spoons and odd measuring cups. You can get these at Williams Sonoma too. They are fantastic. So this is like a 1.5 tablespoon measuring spoon. And that way you're not trying to figure out, oh, how much is that? And feeling like you're putting in the wrong amount. With this recipe, it's okay to not be perfect, which is what I love about it for cooking with migraine. But if you're making something that needs to be a little bit more precise, that's what I would recommend. So we put the cornstarch directly into our fruit. We're just kind of mixing it around so it coats all the berries. And then the other thing we're going to do, oh, and I forgot to get this out. I knew I was missing something. Vanilla. So we're going to get out vanilla and add a teaspoon of vanilla. And there's no like perfect vanilla out there. Actually, sometimes vanilla has a fake flavoring to it, which is why real vanilla is like so expensive, because vanilla beans are very expensive. But you can also get vanilla without alcohol. Some people who are very sensitive to alcohol may notice a difference. Usually it's too small to notice a difference for people with migraine, but you know, I've heard so many different stories from different people. So If alcohol really bothers you, I know Trader Joe's has a great non-alcoholic vanilla. Usually they use glycerin instead of alcohol. And then if you really want to go extreme, you can buy your own vanilla beans and soak them in vodka and actually make your own vanilla extract that way. So a super, super clean vanilla, I guess. So we have that all mixed together. It smells, oh my God, it smells amazing. Okay, I'm really excited about this. So our berries are ready to go. Look how pretty, right? Looks so festive. It's perfect for summer.
Beautiful.
So we're gonna work on the crumble next. And we're gonna start with rolled oats. So I have Bob's Red Mill here. If you are looking for, I don't know if these are certified gluten-free. If you do need gluten-free, you probably already know this, but you can get certified gluten-free oats. Not all rolled oats are certified gluten-free, so just FYI, if that's what you need, or you're cooking for someone who has an allergy. But I thought these were, I don't see it on here. But anyway, any old-fashioned rolled oats will do. What you don't want is like quick cooking oats, which are a little bit like if you ran rolled oats through a food processor and kind of chopped them up a little more fine. That's kind of how quick cooking oats are. You don't want that because they don't get as like nice and toasty and crispy. So we're going to measure out 1.5 cups of rolled oats. And here I have my unique measuring cup. So this is 1.5 cups perfectly.
Alicia, Elizabeth has a question.
Yeah.
Will it be the end of the world if I do use quick oats today?
No, it won't be the end of the world. I would just go with that.
Okay, perfect.
They might not be as crispy, but one thing I will recommend is don't mix your oats into your fruit. You want everything to sit on top of the fruit. That way you're not they're not absorbing that moisture and getting mushy. So you don't want to end up with like an oatmeal crumble. That just wouldn't be as fun. You want it to be nice and crispy on top. So I have 1.5 cups of oats, and I'm gonna add let's talk about seeds. So I have sunflower seeds for this, and I also brought out these pumpkin seeds that I like that are already toasted and salted. If you are trying to do low sodium, again, you can just get plain unroasted, unsalted sunflower seeds. I actually found the best deal on these at Trader Joe's because seeds can get a little bit expensive, but I do find some people tolerate pumpkin seeds better than sunflower seeds. This recipe, I traditionally like to use sunflower seeds. If you don't know, let's say you don't have these toasted or you don't know how to toast these at home, what you can do is just put them into a non-stick pan. So I have this non-stick pan here that I'm actually going to use for our queso later, but we can double duty and use them to toast the sunflower seeds. Just add them to a dry non-stick pan. And we're going to put these on low heat. You want to watch them pretty carefully because they cook, don't cook, and all of a sudden they're burnt. So I'm going to try to my best to remember these, but I'm also going to mix in, while I'm working, I'm also going to mix in these pumpkin seeds, salted. Again, I use whatever you have on hand. I like to add 1/4 cup of those to the oat mixture. And I'm actually using an OXO measuring cup. It measures up to 4 tablespoons, which is 1/4 cup. But this is really great for things, measuring things like honey, like oil for a salad. If you need 2 or 3 tablespoons here and there, perfect. So I highly recommend this.
Alicia,
Uh-huh.
is toasted the same thing as roasted?
Yes, they're the same. Oh, that's perfect. Roasted and unsalted is
Just
perfect.
making sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm just going to mix these into my oats really quick. And I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. I am actually using, so normally my favorite brand of kosher salt to use is called Diamond. It's got finer crystals than Morton's. Today I'm actually using Morton's, which is a little bit more salty in taste because the crystals are not as fine. So it just depends on what you're using and how salty you kind of like things. But what I would recommend is a good place to start is about a 1/4 teaspoon. That's usually safe across the board. And you can always add more later if you like a little bit more saltiness, or I would even, cut back a little bit if you're using salted sunflower seeds as well. I'm going to check my sunflower seeds right now and just make sure they're not burning. You'll start to smell them a little bit. You just kind of want to move them around and toast them in that pan. Okay. Finally, what else you can do is either do a 1/4 cup of honey or a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So today I'm going to use honey for this, but brown sugar works just as well. I know sometimes people are triggered by the molasses in brown sugar. So if honey works better for you, I've heard of people triggered by honey. So I like to give options here so you guys can choose whatever fits your dietary needs. But today I'm going to be using honey. We need about a 1/4 cup. One tip that I have for measuring out honey is if you coat the inside of a 1/4 cup measuring cup with a little bit of oil, it will easily slide out the honey. So you can even do this. We're going to end up using a 1/4 cup of melted butter for this actually later. Again, you can use melted butter. You can use melted coconut oil. I'm using this vegan pressed oil today. I just microwaved it for like 10, 15 seconds in the microwave till it wasn't like completely melted, but just really soft. And you can use that either to coat the inside of your measuring cup, or you can use an oil. So that's what I'm going to do really quick. And if you coat the inside of your measuring cup just real quick, you can even dump the oil back in. It will help that honey slide right out of it. Oh, here it is. Measure out a 1/4 cup here. The other thing you can do with this recipe is just kind of eyeball it. You really don't need to have to measure it if you are skilled at using your eyeballs.
Alicia, Jamie's wondering, is the sunflower seeds, it's a 1/4 cup total?
Yes, a 1/4 cup total.
Thanks.
And if you like more, if you love seeds, you can always add even up to a 1/3, up to a 1/2 cup, I think, just for that extra crunch. Let me check mine. So I added my honey directly to my oats along with the salt and the pumpkin seeds that I have in here. And we're just going to mix those together. And then we can add our melted butter as well, or coconut oil or whatever you're using. And so quick tip, don't skimp on the oil or the butter that you're using. It's a very important part of the recipe. And this is because this gets that topping nice and brown and crispy. You skip on your oil, it can have a tendency to get mushy. We do not want that. We want that like lovely golden flavor. So don't
And how
skimp
much
on
butter
that
was
part.
that?
We're using a 1/4 cup of melted butter.
1/4 cup of melted butter.
We're just combining that all together. Now you'll see, you know, different recipes for a crisp and a crumble. They're essentially the same thing. Some of them use flour and they'll have you press together. They'll have you make sort of a dough that you put on top of the crisp or the berries filling, actually, which is a fine way to go. You could even do that here if you wanted to. I just prefer it this way because it's just so much easier. There's no fussing around with pressing together dough or anything like that. You mix it up.
Alicia, was it a 1/4 cup of butter?
1/4 cup of butter, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Or oil, coconut oil or whatever else you're using. Okay, I think I got everything in there. Yeah, except for the seeds. My seeds are still cooking back here. They're getting a little bit brown.
Are you sure you're not burning the seeds, Alicia?
Thank you for the reminder. They're doing okay. I had them on really low heat and I just turned it up. But now they're starting to brown. So I'm going to take them off.
What do those seeds look like?
They're just getting more of a light brown color to them. I don't know if you can tell. Yeah. And they smell a little bit more fragrant, like toasted. So I actually already added my 1/4 cup. But see, you can tell I'm already adding more seeds to it. They should call this the do what you want crumble because really you can do what you want. Just have to have the basics down.
Hey, Alicia. Question. So I bought regular, old-fashioned rolled oats, but I actually have instant oatmeal, but I didn't use this, and it is rolled oats because I wasn't sure. I have your book, but I didn't see it listed on there. Do you have any knowledge of amaranth and whether that is migraine friendly?
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Amaranth? Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, most grains, you know, it's just a different type of grain. So most grains are okay. Like I've used buckwheat before. I really like, I have a recipe in the book called buckwheat granola that I really like.
Okay. So amaranth is just a different grain. Okay. And then flax seeds and chia seeds are considered migraine friendly? Yes.
Now some people do, very rarely do I find like readers who have issues with seeds. And so at that point you just kind of have to reevaluate, but it's really rare. And on this diet, they're totally allowed.
Okay. Thank you.
I say if you don't notice things bothering you, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it till you have to worry about it, right? So I just spread my crumble on top. You want to make sure it covers the fruit completely in a nice thick layer. And again, this is what I love about using a gratin dish or a shallower dish, is that it fills it completely and there's an even layer of crumble to fruit on the bottom. And that's it. We're done. So all we have to do is put this in the oven, bake it. We're going to bake this at 350 for about 50 to 60 minutes. So we'll check it about 50 when we get done with Karen's sangria and the queso. And they should be golden brown and ready to serve. So we can check all that later, but I'm going to put this in the oven now. And I'm going to hand it over to Karen, who's going to teach us how to make her sangria. Oh, any more questions? I guess I should have asked that before we go.
I missed the first part. Did you line the baking pan with butter?
No. Oh, yeah. Just kind of lightly oil it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Oil or butter.
Okay. Karen, you're up.
Cool. Hello. All right, so for our sangria, we're gonna get a little bit weird in the way that we add acids. I wanna start with that first. The lemongrass part of it is gonna take the longest to cool. So that's what we wanna focus on to begin with. A lot of traditional sangrias either have fresh citrus juice added or slices added to the finished cocktail, if you will, to add garnish and also flavor. So here, because we know citrus is a pretty common, migraine trigger, we're going to get around that by basically infusing smashed lemongrass into distilled white vinegar. Now, I know that distilled white vinegar is relatively safe for all of us because of Alicia's website. Thank you. I ended up using this vinegar actually in one of her recipes, the 1-2-3 dressing that's in her cookbook, which was fantastic this week. So we're going to start out. If you've never worked with lemongrass before, it's this kind of woody, sort of stock looking situation. It's very fragrant. You're going to smash it first so that you can basically work up all the oils. The reason I'm using this is because there's a chemical compound in this called limonene that is fairly common in citrus peels that contributes essentially to the finished flavor. We use citrus peel in like traditional cocktail for adding like a citrus note to like an old fashioned or a Negroni or that kind of thing. So here we're just going to infuse it into vinegar and use it to balance out this finished cocktail. You can use, very carefully, I want you to sort of smash this. You can use a cleaned canned good if you don't have any of these other things. You can also use a hammer if you're very careful with it. I prefer to use my ice mallet. And I know not everyone's going to have one of these, but I think it's a lot of fun because it's cool and you just want to hold it on one end and just smash it. Don't be afraid of it. And you want to put it on the other side. Just enough to sort of give it like sort of a woody, broken it apart kind of situation. You'll be able to smell like the fragrance come off of it. You want 2 for this recipe. It's 1 cup of white distilled vinegar and it's 2 of these lemongrass stalks. So you want to take your knife, like Alicia was saying, you want to hold it properly and you just want to plunge it down because these will be a little bit hard. They're woody. These are not going to end up in the finished vinegar. Basically, we're infusing them. These will all be strained out later. So don't worry about getting them perfect. Just drive your knife down. Them fall. Okay, and these pieces will end up going into a pot with your vinegar on a stove. You'll want to bring it to a boil, not like overly boiling. You just want to bring it to a boil while it's covered, turn off the heat, and then just leave it. While you're letting that cool with the lid on, you're essentially, not letting any of the moisture that's in there evaporate because you don't want to overly concentrate the acid basically that you're adding. You're also letting all of that flavor that's in the lemongrass extract and sort of seep into the finished vinegar. And it'll sort of turn this interesting sort of color, like inside of lemongrass, if you can kind of see here. I know my video is a little bit grainy. It's like sort of this light green kind of pinkish color, and you'll sort of get that in the finished vinegar. But while you're letting that steep, we can also move on to our honey. So, honey syrup, super easy peasy. For this recipe, I wanted to use a 1-to-1. So when we talk about ratio for syrup, essentially it is whatever your sweetener is to water. So 1-to-1 here being 1 part honey and 1 part water. And essentially what you want to do here is put, I think I put on my website, half a cup of honey and half a cup of water. You heat it on the stove. It doesn't need to boil. It doesn't need to be covered. You can put it into a non-reactive glass container and seal it. I like using these little like Martinelli's bottles, one because I think the juice is of quality, but they're also incredibly easy to sanitize, very eco-friendly. I like using these for boomerangs. I actually tested this cocktail out on a few friends and we use these to sort of transport the mix for them, which was cool. Okay. So the next thing we want to go into is how do we build the mix next? Yes, building the mix next. So you can use pitchers for these. I put, I think on the shopping list that you can use the mason jars for this. a mason jar would be fantastic. If you're doing like a sort of a holiday gathering for Memorial Day, I really like having the option of having 0 proof next to what I'm calling full proof with like full alcohol. As we sort of move forward in the way that, you know, things are working in the world, 0 proof is becoming a more accepted term. You could also use NA, you could use non-alcoholic, you could use any of those terms. I'm not particularly a huge fan of mocktail because I've never ever seen anyone's eyes not go down when they order a mocktail for me. And I honestly think there's nothing to be shamed for, you know, about making a great decision for you. I don't always drink when I go out with my friends because I have a migraine condition. I'm pretty open about that. And it's something I kind of want to like put an emphasis on moving forward. So I like having the option essentially for both because you're giving your guests the opportunity to make a good decision for them while you're taking the pressure off of like having to have that like conversation about it. So what we'll do here is I wanted to start with the 0 proof first since we're using more juice. On the side of these mason jars, there's ounces, there's also milliliters. Today we're going to be using the side that has cups and ounces. So essentially for 0 proof, we're going to be doing 2 cups of white grape juice. You can use any brand of white grape juice. This doesn't have to be this one. I would be sort of mindful of the labels. There's a lot of additives and juice that's on the shelf. I sort of pick through and find the ones that I think are like the most natural. Like this one is just reconstituted. So it's essentially a concentrate that just has water added to it. There's nothing weird or extra in this. So we'll measure out 2 cups. And that's good. And then on this side, we will also add 1.5 ounces of lemongrass vinegar. Most standard jiggers, the small side is 1 ounce, the larger size is 2. If you get one that there are no markings inside of, like this one has no markings, you can use just right underneath the lip. It's typically like around 1/4 inch. That's not always accurate. If you have one that has the markings on the inside, that is fantastic and perfect, and we will be happy with that. So we'll measure at 1.5 ounces of the lemongrass vinegar. Okay. And our 0 proof can sit off to the side for a second while we work on our full proof. So in keeping it the same amount of liquid, there'll be different amounts of honey syrup and lemongrass vinegar in both. I tested them side by side so that I could get them as close as possible, like flavor wise. We definitely want to make sure that in both expressions, like flavor is present, enjoyable, it's balanced. Acids there, sweetness is there, the fruit's coming through, the soda shines, like everything should work together at the end. So here for the full proof, we have 1 cup of juice. Okay. And then we will use 1 ounce of lemongrass vinegar. And we'll use 1.5 ounces of honey. This side is going to need a little bit more sweetness. I didn't add honey to the other because it didn't need it without the added alcohol. I decided to go with honey because the white grape juice in the 0 proof expression proved to be quite floral, and I wanted that to come through in this side as well. And then we'll also add to that 6 ounces of wine, essentially like a glass. I chose Sauvignon Blanc. Alicia has a wonderful guide on her website on how to pick out different types of wine. Sauvi B is like I call it Sauvi B. Sauvi B is one of my favorites because it's just easy to drink. You can wand this first if you want. If you're a wine wander and you need that in your life, you can wand this before you add it. 4 and 6. And then on this side, I'm going to add 2 ounces of unaged brandy. You can use any clear spirit you want. We know and understand that most aged spirits contain a lot of coningers, which contribute to like triggering migraines. There's an exponential, there's a number of resources online that will provide you with a lot of information on that. Here we're going to add 2 ounces of white brandy. I like the flavor of this because it sort of adds to the fruit forwardness. Vodka will be fine. Gin will be great. You can sort of use whatever you like. So this is going to sit off to the side as well. Okay, and then we're going to move to our fruit. Okay. So like Alicia had strawberries, we're going to do strawberries as well. You can use whatever fruit you like. I happen to find some really fantastic mangoes and golden kiwis as well. If you want to use regular kiwi, that's fine. If you don't have access to great mangoes or can't find any, you could even use some from your frozen section if you wanted to. Peaches would also be interchangeable. I thought about making a batch with peaches, but the ones I had were not of great quality, so mango it is. I didn't really know how to cut a mango properly until a couple years ago, and I realized it's a little weird, so I'm going to show you how I did mine. Stem side up. You want to grab it right here firmly. Take your knife and slice down. When you slice down, you want to slice close to the middle, but not so much that you're running into the pit. But you want to make sure you're getting as much of the flesh on this side as possible. So just plunge your knife down, follow the pit, and you have this wonderful slice that's full of juice. We're going to set this guy off to the side.
Karen, we're getting some questions. Can I just ask?
Really?
Okay. Somebody wants to know, what if you can't tolerate alcohol?
If you can't tolerate alcohol, that's what the zero proof is expression is for. This one is totally alcohol free. This one has the juice in it. This one has vinegar, and it'll have the fruit, and then we'll top it off with soda.
Okay, and then
alternatively in this, use a zero proof spirit if you'd like. Zero proof spirits are new on the market and basically essentially are like extremely fancy, like distilled waters. From what I know and understand, like it's an interesting sort of process. There's a whole like tangent we could go down with that. But essentially you can find them at a grocery store if you like nicer grocery stores have them. Your local like spirit shop should have them as well. The one that's closest to me has an interesting selection. I like a Rituals tequila alternative. That was nice in this. I also really love Sea Lip.
okay, and then somebody wants to know if you can repeat the, Elizabeth Kelly wants to know, could you repeat the part about boiling the lemongrass?
Oh yeah, absolutely, no worries. So you take the lemongrass and you put it in a pot on your stove with your vinegar. So 2 smashed and chopped lemongrass stalks in 1 cup of vinegar. Cover the pot, bring it to a boil, and just leave it. Turn it off as soon as it starts to boil and leave it with the lid on. As it starts to cool, the lemongrass will steep into the vinegar and you'll get all of those wonderful like citrusy sort of flavors without the citrus. It's gonna hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So slicing the mango half, I like to hold it on the sides here because it can be a little tricky. You're gonna plunge the tip of your knife down and essentially create a grid. Try to get it as even as possible. It doesn't really matter if you go through the skin. If I'm like presenting this, if I'm making like a plate of fruit to share with my friends, I try to make sure that it looks like really pretty. But for this, it doesn't matter because we're not using the peel. We just want to get as much of the fruit out as we can. And then you can sort of use your thumbs to flip this guy inside out, and then you have access to all these wonderful little cubes of fruit. You can do our other side. You can sort of play around with whatever way works best for you to do this. You just don't want the tip of this knife to touch you because I've seen someone do it before while they were holding it like this and it made me extremely nervous. All right, we're going to put this guy inside out. Okay. And now we have golden kiwi, or any kiwi really. I like the golden kiwis because they tend to be a little bit on the sweeter side. They also produce like some interesting pear notes. So I just want to chop the ends off. The ends can be a little bit woody, so we don't really want that in the finished thing. The peels of this are totally edible, and they're actually softer and less fuzzy than regular green kiwis. But we want to peel these off because we want to get as much contact with the surface area, the actual like juicy, fleshy part of this kiwi, so we can get all the flavor it's going to add. This is a Y peeler. You're more than welcome to use a vegetable peeler, but this is what I'm used to for cocktail world. So we just want to peel it carefully. This one's nice and ripe. You want to make sure that it has a little bit of give when you touch it, but not too much, because if they're overripe, that can be kind of problematic for us. Okay, now we're going to discard these peels. And then we want to just cut these into like pretty even slices, because we're going to use half in each batch. And then, pretty little guys, cut them into half moons. Set these off to the side. And then we have our strawberries, kind of very similar to what Alicia was doing. We just want to cut the tops off, half them. It doesn't matter what they look like at the end. We just want to get even pieces. And we want to do 3 per side. I love using strawberry also in syrup because they tend to add their wonderful red sort of color to the finished product. They're a wonderful way to get some beautiful colors into your finished cocktail without adding anything artificial. Okay, we can pull back both of our batches. We're going to add an even amount of fruit to each batch. We want to take this half of the kiwis and carefully add them. And then the 3 chopped strawberries are going to go in as well. And then you'll notice if you've gotten a really nice mango, these are actually sort of pulling away from the skin on their own. You can totally use your hands to pull these off if you want. If you need to use a knife, I would sort of take it flat on the side and peel them that way, so you're cutting away from yourself. And it's totally okay that these pieces end up in your finished measurements. I accounted for that. They should be totally soaked in the juice and syrup and vinegar that we've added. You can discard that. Lid on. We have this waterproof version. Kiwi halves. Little guys. Our strawberries. And this half of our kiwi. Not kiwi, I'm sorry, mango. I'm going to cut the ends of this off. Not to put any of the skin in there. This last bit. Okay. Lid on. We have 2 finished batches. If you want to label if you're doing 2 side by side like I am and you'd like to label these, blue painter's tape works fantastically. You can buy this at literally any hardware store. I've seen it at like Walmart's. I've seen it actually at H-E-B. H-E-B is like a local chain in Texas, I'm sorry. most like hardware places will carry it. It sticks even if it's in the fridge, so it's fantastic for that. I use these all the time for labeling sauces and things that I make at home, which is cool. And then I just use a Sharpie on them, so that's perfect. You can sort of move these around like that because they're totally sealed. They go in the fridge, and then we can hang on to those for, you know, they'll stay in the fridge until you're ready to serve them. And then I have my wine glasses. Nice. Nice. And then we're making the finished cocktail. I have 0 proof on this side. And then we'll use a totally separate jigger for this side, since this is going to be our foolproof side. Also 3 ounces. And like I said, it's okay if the fruit ends up in the measurement. I sort of took an account for that, and it is going to look beautiful in the glass when it's finished. And then we want to top this off with club soda. You can serve these in wine goblets if you want to. I took pictures of them in Collins glasses for my website because stemmed glassware tends to not last at my house. But since I'm at work right now, stemmed glassware is perfect. And if you want to sort of give it a little stir, you totally can. Spoon, any sort of spoon, cocktail spoon. And there we have them. Cheers.
Beautiful.
Do we have any questions?
Any questions?
There's a question in the chat. Jen, can you see that?
If you make the lemongrass vinegar syrup, how long can you save it in a glass jar for later? Thanks.
I had so the finished shelf life on it, I'm not entirely certain about. I've had mine in the fridge for about a week because I was using it also in salad dressing. I just made a huge batch because I wanted to I test things out in different ways. Mine has been in the fridge for about a week, has been totally fine. The batch I used for this, I made earlier today, but the one I had before was in for about a week. Yeah.
Looks great, Karen. Awesome. I have never seen that before. I'm reading the chats. Very nice. They love it.
Cool. I knew it was going to be a little bit weird using lemongrass and vinegar, but like, honestly, we want all the things. So like the acid here, I think we're going to be really happy with it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to go back to Alicia.
Hi, thanks, Karen. That looks amazing.
It does.
I have to say, Karen made both mocktails for my book release party, and which we could turn into cocktails pretty easily with vodka. And one was a strawberry ginger and fennel syrup. That's super easy to make. She has that posted on my website. And then another one that either of us need to post is like a kiwi cocktail that was incredible, especially now that kiwis are kind of back and really good. So we might have to get that one up too, but she's just super talented. I wanted to piggyback off of what she said, and I saw someone talk about it in the chat, was non-alcoholic options. So actually, I went through this a lot when I was pregnant, and I was trying to find, like, especially during the summer, you know, I missed my margaritas or anything like that. So Ritual actually has a decent tequila alternative. It's kind of spicy. I think they were trying to recreate that smoky flavor, and it ends up a little more spicy. But it's really, really good. I like it mixed with mango sparkling water. It's delicious for kind of like especially if you're sensitive to citrus, it's like kind of a quick alternative to a margarita. And then I also tried these, I think they're called Lyres. I don't know, Karen might know the actual name of them. Lyres.
Lyres is right.
So Lyres, okay. So this is their dry London. It's supposed to be like a gin, basically, and it makes a really good non-alcoholic martini, actually. And then I guess this one, I don't know, Karen might have to weigh in on this, but this American malt is kind of like a whiskey that you could maybe use. It's 0 proof. Again, these do have some gums and flavorings in them, but if your main trigger is alcohol, it might be something to look into. I got both of these at Central Market, and then the Ritual I just order off of Amazon. But I think you can also order them directly from their website too. But that's just kind of what they look like. Let's get started with this queso. So let's talk a little bit about American cheese. I hope you all could find it today to make this. So American cheese, I think we're used to thinking of it as like the Velveeta processed cheese, but there are actually good brands out there that are making really quality American cheese. So basically what quality American cheese means is it's an unaged cheddar cheese and an unaged Colby cheese, and they're mixed together. So you're typically, it's like a very, like cheddar goes from mild to medium to aged, basically. And so that increases the longer that cheddar is aged, that flavor, that depth of flavor. So what you're using is like a super, super mild cheddar as well as a Colby cheese. And they both melt extremely well, which is what you want for a good queso. So I think people think you have to use Velveeta, and you don't. What you really just need to do is find a quality American cheese, but this is why other cheeses won't work. Like I've seen some recipes use Monterey Jack, and they'll also use like cornstarch or flour to thicken it. But to me, no matter how much you whisk them or whatever, they always end up kind of grainy. The trick to that, again, is to use American cheese. So today I'm using one from a brand called Andrew and Everett. You can go to their website. They have a locator online. If you can't find this, another good brand is Boar's Head, although this past year was very controversial because we had Cheesegate, where a bunch of Boar's Head cheeses weren't melting for this queso recipe. So seems they have fixed that. So hopefully today we will have no issues with it melting. Boar's Head seems to be pretty easy to find across the board. The third one, I think there's like a Craft, there might be a Craft Select as well as a Horizon. Those will also work as well. And so, oh, I think Helen, you have your thing on, your speaker on. So basically you can buy these in block form, and you're just going to use a cheese grater to grate it for this queso. This will help it melt a lot easier. The way to buy it in block form is to simply ask your deli counter. Usually you have a guy there slicing the meats and stuff like that. They'll typically have a block of American cheese back there, like one of those big ones, and they can slice you off a block that you can then grate yourself. The other way to do this, if you do have to get the slices, is just to kind of treat it like a block and try to grate it that way as best you can. But we need about a half a pound of American cheese. So I'm just going to grate mine here. I have about, you know, a little, almost 3/4 of a pound here. And actually, this American cheese, if you don't use it all right away, or say you're like dairy free like me and you're making this for someone else, you can actually store this in the freezer. This actually just came out of my freezer and it stores really well. Just defrost it in the fridge whenever you're ready overnight. Defrost super quickly. And I like to put these on a little sheet of wax paper. Just makes it easier to carry, doesn't get all over the place. You can kind of pick it up. Anything to make our lives a little bit easier, right? So I have my half a pound grated American cheese right here. And then I'm also going to use a half a cup of whole milk. So that'll make it extra creamy. And then finally, we're going to take one small shallot and chop that up for our queso too. I'm going to move my grated cheese off to the side.
Alicia, you can only use American cheese?
Yes. So
Yeah.
if you use any other type of cheese, it will not melt into a smooth creaminess. It'll be clumpy and awful. I've gotten so many text messages from friends saying they tried to use regular cheddar cheese. Why is my recipe clumping? It's because you didn't listen to me. But I don't say that. I say, oh, I wouldn't tell you that. So we're going to take a small shallot. Typically, shallots can range in size. I know a lot of us, you know, I get questions about this all the time. This is what I would consider to be a small shallot. This would be like a normal size shallot, okay? So I like to keep these little guys for like dressings and places where I just need a little bit, a hint of that onion flavor. And I'm just gonna trim off the ends. Lower here. I'm gonna trim off the ends. I'm just using a chef's knife here. Kind of slice down the middle so you can get that skin removed pretty easily. And just remove that outer skin right there. Put that off to the side. And so you'll see I have like two little bulbs kind of pushed together. I consider these both one shallot, okay? But you can separate them to chop them easier. Shallots are actually, the reason why you'll see them in bulb form like this, shallots are actually more closely related to the garlic family. I think a lot of people think of them as red onions, but if you go to cooking classes, they will tell you shallots make a great sub for garlic as well as onions. So I really like them that way. They tend to be, especially if I'm out of garlic or something, they tend to have a good crossover flavor to them. So we're just going to chop that up pretty finely. Run your knife through it a few times. Okay. And again, if you have a decent size nonstick pan, I'm using like a medium sized one, and I'll bring you guys over with me to cook. That would be great to have out and ready. We're also going to start just chopping our cilantro here. So I like to keep my parsley and cilantro in the fridge in just a cup of water. And they keep for a really long time. Like these will keep for about 1 to 2 weeks, actually, if not longer. That's the way they stay fresh and looking good. So that's a little tip or trick to make your herbs last longer. Just don't do this with basil. Basil will turn brown. You want to keep basil out on your countertops. So I'm gonna grab, let's see, how much did I say for you guys? I said 1/4 cup of cilantro. So I'm gonna grab about a 1/4 cup and run my knife through it, rough chop. I feel really bad for my friends who get the wrong cheese, actually. Like, they're like non-migraine friends, and I really want them to like the cookbook. And one of my friends, he was like so proud of himself for cooking, and then he's like, what happened? My cheese all got clumpy. And I said, well, what cheese did you use? He didn't listen to me. You can hear George. He's really happy.
I hear George.
Poor Casey. Trying to feed him. Hopefully he'll be happy by the end of this. Okay, so we have our cilantro chopped. We won't need that right away. We'll add it towards the end, but we'll just take everything over to the oven with us. So I'm gonna bring you all over here. If you are sensitive to movement, please just look away for a little bit as I move my camera. And I'll let you know when we're set up. Bring you guys over here. Okay. Let's try to get this going really good. Okay. If you hate cilantro, you just leave it out. Don't eat it. Actually, some people have, I don't know if it's like a gene or what it is, but there are some people in this world that think cilantro tastes like soap. They're like genetically predisposed, like they can't, that's all they taste when they taste it, which is kind of interesting. Actually, Ina Garten is this way. She hates cilantro and leaves it out of all of her recipes, which I think is really interesting. So just something to note. You're not weird. If you hate cilantro, you may be genetically predisposed to hating cilantro. It's okay. But this recipe is delicious without it, I promise. So I'm just adding, if you're using a nonstick pan, I would just add your shallot right in there. You really don't need oil or anything. If you aren't using a nonstick pan, I would try to do just a touch of oil to saute it. So you don't need this to cook too much. This nonstick pan, actually, I've gone through a few. I've gone through like Green Pan, and this is Maiden. I really like Maiden, but I've only had it for maybe a month or two, so I'm going to see how it lasts. My Green Pans didn't last all that long. So you know how they use that, they lose that nonstick coating after a while. So I'm just going to turn this, I have it on like medium heat. We're going to end up turning it down to low, but just to get things kind of warmed up, starting with medium heat. I have a gas stove. If you have a what do they call them? I'm like brain fogging right now. An electric range. Thank you. If you have an electric range, you may have to turn it a little bit higher. What I found in my previous cooking classes is that gas just heats things a lot faster and a lot higher heat. So you may have to turn it up to like medium high to kind of get things going. So I can kind of hear my shallots start to cook a little bit. We don't need these to saute down too much, just release a little bit of flavor. And then what we're gonna do before things get too hot is add our 1/2 cup of milk. So we'll start to warm up that milk a little bit. Now you don't want it simmering, you don't want it boiling, you just want it to start to warm up. So if you start seeing any bubbles, sign to turn down your heat. Okay. So we're gonna let that warm for a minute or two. And then we're going to start adding our cheese one handful at a time. So you can use, actually, I'm using a wooden spoon for this, but a whisk is really good too, especially your first time you're making it. It helps you incorporate that cheese and get things a lot smoother just quickly. But adding your cheese a handful at a time will also help with that. Okay. And it won't seem like much at the beginning. It may look like your cheese is not incorporating very well. Just give it some time. It'll slowly start to melt. This is patient queso. Just have to be patient with it. Just keep stirring. Don't leave it. But that cheese will slowly become incorporated bit by bit. And again, if you're noticing it start to clump up a little too much, I would recommend switching to a whisk to help out with that. Are there any questions so far? How's everyone doing?
Does it make a difference what kind of milk you use, like skim, 2% whole?
So I like whole milk because the higher fat content in milk, the better it tolerates higher heat. So that's why I like using heavy cream. It stands up to acidity a little bit better. It doesn't get grainy if you have it on a higher heat, or if you reduce it down. Sometimes lower fat milks will get a little bit grainy if you don't bring them up to a higher heat slowly. So see, mine's starting to bubble a little bit, so I just turn my heat down. So I find that whole milk just gives the perfect texture, perfect creaminess. But in a pinch, if you just watch that heat level, you can use a lower fat milk if that's what you have. It's not going to ruin your dish. Just might have a, less creamy texture. The flavor will still be there. So as you add your cheese, you can see it start to thicken. Add a little bit more. And this will give you that super creamy white queso. No need to add milk or flour or anything like that to it. It'll be the perfect thickness. This also reheats very well. So what I'll usually do is cover it with a paper towel and put it in the microwave for 15-20 seconds and keep stirring on and off. The other way you can do it is to dump it back into a nonstick skillet, or keep it on your skillet. It will form kind of a skin on top, but all you have to do is just turn up the heat a little bit and stir it, and it'll go back to being creamy. I don't know if you guys can tell, but here it is. You'll start seeing kind of a line form when you run your spoon through it. This means it's getting to that perfect thickness of creamy queso. So if your queso is a little bit thin, if it's not coating your chip well, what you need to do is add more cheese. If it's a little too thick, it's too sticky to kind of run your spoon through it, then you just need to add a little bit more milk. So play around with those proportions. A few extra little pieces of cheese here. Okay, and then finally what we're gonna do is add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Again, this queso is actually really good. You don't have to add cumin, but I really like it. Just bumps up that depth of flavor. Oh, you see mine start to bubble a little bit. We don't want that, so we'll turn down our heat. And then just keep stirring. Mine's like the perfect texture right now, the perfect thickness. And then we're just gonna stir in our cilantro if you're using. If not, just leave it out. The other thing you can do if you're using a jalapeno, just add in chopped jalapeno to it and let it cook down a little bit with this. Again, it depends on your heat level. Usually, all I like to add is about half of a jalapeno with the seeds and the ribs removed, which take away some of that heat but keep the flavor. But it's totally up to you what you want to add. And there you have it. That's queso. Really easy.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
I'm like dying. I like really want to try it, but I won't.
But you can't.
Oh,
That looks fantastic.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's so good.
All right.
Okay.
Someone asked, will tomatoes make it loose?
Tomatoes, no, you could actually add chopped tomatoes. I just wouldn't add too much juice from them, but you know, about a 1/4 cup to 1/3 of a cup of chopped tomatoes would be really nice in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, Alicia, and that was fantastic. So, how does everybody's dishes turn out? Did anybody have a big fail?
I guess we should look at our crumbles.
Oh yeah, let's look at our crumbles too.
Mine actually is done. I think I can bring it out. Let me move the camera really quick. So
yep.
So anyone just
what was
close your eyes. What did you guys say?
Oh, I said, what was the baking temp and the time for the crumble?
350 for about 50 to 60 minutes. I've had mine in about 45, I think, and it's looking pretty brown on top. So I think I can take it out. I'm just gonna set myself up over here so you guys can see with trying to protect my counters. Okay. Let me take this out here. Okay. Take ours out. So this is what it'll look like when you're done. Great. It'll be nice and golden brown and kind of bubbly underneath.
That looks fantastic. So did anybody have any mishaps while they were cooking today with Alicia or Karen? No? Everybody was pitch perfect? Okay.
Wait, I just have to say that Alicia's crumble looks exactly like the photograph from her cookbook.
Well, yes, that's why she's the
yeah. It does, doesn't it?
All right. Okay. So everything went exactly according to plan. That's fantastic, everybody. Well, I want to, I just came to watch. I want to give away another t-shirt, and that t-shirt is going to go to Francine for asking So many fantastic questions. Francine, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but Francine, you have, you can get with Helen in the chat, and you win either a t-shirt or a mask. Did anybody accidentally buy the wrong cheese? Accidentally buy the wrong cheese?
I bought orange cheddar.
You bought orange cheddar.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry, orange American. No, orange American. I bought American, but I bought orange.
Oh, orange American is fine.
Yeah, it came out fantastic, and I'm going to cut my jalapeno and put a little bit in.
Okay, perfect.
Lisa had to get slices.
Yeah, both of my things came out like a picture perfect.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
I can't wait to eat them.
And pepper jack. Lisa? Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa, you win a Dizzy Cook cookbook.
Oh.
So you get with Helen in the comment section. And
Hold on.
What?
One thing, I already have one and I absolutely love it. So I would love for that to go to somebody else that doesn't have it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. Oh no. Did it?
Oh, no.
Whoever comments in the chat first, I guess.
Cheryl, you get a Dizzy Cook cookbook because you commented first. Get with Helen in the chat and give her your information. So a survey is going to pop up real quick. If you could take a moment and answer the questions. 4 of you will win a Miles for Migraine mask. The survey popping up.
This is delicious, Alicia. I'm eating it right now.
Oh, the queso? Yay, that's awesome.
A red pepper, just push around.
What was that? That was Lisa. What was that? What was that, Lisa?
I don't know what happened there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Sorry about that.
Actually, I was going to ask, so Karen during her presentation mentioned boomerangs, and I thought she could elaborate on that. It's actually a really fun idea.
I'm so glad you said that because I did, and I totally forgot to explain what it is. So boomerangs are kind of like a fun industry thing. They were essentially just originally like ways for us to like send like portable cocktails to our friends. I've seen some interest. I sent one to Alicia that unfortunately like half frozen because I've never worked with ice before.
It was great. Actually, it was really fun.
Yeah, she lives about 4 or 5-ish hours away from me, so it wasn't terribly far. I had a friend that was going up near her anyways, but essentially like it's just a pre-packaged cocktail you send to a friend. It's called a boomerang because you usually get one back, but I think it's fun to just I use them sort of as a way to test out cocktails because essentially I can make a drink that tastes great to me, but if it doesn't taste great to everyone else, then what are we really doing here?
So it might be like a fun idea for like migraine friends or something. I never sent a cocktail back to Karen because I don't know what I'm really doing with cocktails. So
no, hey, you gave me a copy of your book, which I put in the comments. I was like, mine is like super marked up. It's got little tiny sticky notes, all the staples I have like saved. It's fantastic. Yeah. I was like, you gave me a whole book.
So
okay, that's
the
awesome.
survey is in the chat. So if you could go on over there real quick and take the survey, it'll be real quick, and you can get a Miles for Migraine mask. 4 people will get it. The odds are in your favor.
I also wanted to say, we didn't really chat about this, but ice cream to serve on top of this. So there are a number of brands that are really, really good. Haagen-Dazs is usually one that's pretty widely found, and it's got really good ingredients to it. If you are dairy free, what I would recommend is this Coconut Bliss vanilla bean ice cream. It doesn't have a bunch of gums or thickeners. The ingredients are really, really simple. So that's what I really like to use. It does have coconut, but it's pretty delicious. So, but again, those are the 2 brands that I really recommend, but hopefully you can find something near you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank Alicia and Karen for this amazing event. It was so much fun watching, and I'm sure it was so much fun making everything, and it will be so much fun eating everything.
Yeah,
I want to thank all of you that made the event so much fun and interactive. Remember, you can order your very own cookbook at thedizzycook.com. I want to thank you to our sponsor, Tiva. Lastly, I want to thank all of the volunteers who make these events extra special. Without you, there would be no events like these. We will be sending out a survey to see how you liked this event and to get your feedback on today's event. These help us plan for our future social events and for other Miles for Migraine events. Thank you all so much. Have a great week, and have a great Memorial Day, and be safe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for showing up.
Bye. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, everyone.
It was
Thanks,
awesome. I
Karen.
can't wait to eat. See ya.
Hi, Katie.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So much. That was
Good to see you, Nicole.
Thank you.